Today's episode of Club 15 is truly special. It is such an honor to welcome Yoko Wantanabe, Global Manager of the Global Environmental Facility Small Grant Program. Yoko's work unites 127 countries, all working to solve Earth's most pressing environmental challenges. The GEF Small Grant Program has provided over $1 billion of funding worldwide since its inception. $1 billion! Here's a list of global issues that Yoko and her team are working on. Yoko will give us examples of powerful change happening with these critical topics: biodiversity, climate change, international waters, land degradation, organic pollutants, mercury, sustainable forest management, food security, sustainable cities. I'm certain that there is something on this list that will inspire you to take action. The fact is, it's up to our generation to mend this planet, and time is running out. I hope you will take something you learned today, dig deep, and make a plan to learn as much as you can and then take action. Let's go! It's with great excitement that I welcome Yoko Watanabe to Club 15. Okay, to start off, can you tell us where you're located and what your job is?
Hi, Kate. Great to be here. My name is Yoko Watanabe. I am actually in New York City, in Manhattan right now. I work at United Nations Development Program, and I'm a global manager managing a program called the GF Small Grants Program. So I'll explain about that later.
Awesome. Okay, so what did you do before you started working at the GEF Small Grant Program?
Great. So before that, I was actually working in Washington, D.C. at the GF, the Global Environment Facility, managing biodiversity programs. And then before that, I was actually in Mongolia and Nepal, managing environmental projects on the ground, doing protected area management with the rangers and species conservation like snow leopard conservation, tiger conservation, and all that on the ground. So I spent about total 6 years in the countries. I've also worked in Rwanda in Africa, where I've seen the gorillas in protected areas and worked on that as well.
Okay, as I mentioned before in my intro, you work with 127 countries and manage over 5,000 global projects. To help our listeners understand this, I would love for you to tell me a favorite project or two and give us examples from each category. So let's start with biodiversity. What is your favorite project that falls under climate change?
Okay, so starting from biodiversity, maybe I'll start with a jaguar conservation project that we highlighted also with Microsoft and you recently in the video. So we work on jaguar conservation with communities in Panama, where jaguar habitat, the landscape in the forest, is actually degraded. So we're working with communities to save the forest, monitor the jaguar population, and try to come up with alternative means of income rather than hunting, the jaguars or destroying the environment, and doing more sustainable agriculture and other ecotourism and other works on the ground. So we work with community groups and civil society organization working on this. On climate change, my favorite project is actually a project on solar panel. So we are installing solar panel around the world, and actually a group called a group of women actually have been supporting developing and maintaining these solar panel and putting on community places like hospitals or community centers, and so that it can be electrified and use that electricity to gain more income, like making soaps, making handicrafts and other things. And also kids can also study now in the night by having electricity. And so we are working in many countries around the world installing solar panels and having electricity access, as well as this will decrease the CO2 emission by using the regular fossil fuel generated energies.
Wow, this made me think of solar panels. Here where I'm based, Austin, there's a huge grocery store and it's fully powered by solar panels. So yeah, I think solar panels are a really cool way to fight climate change. Okay, so now can you explain what work you do with international waters?
Great. So international waters means, shared water, like ocean to start with. Like, it's not only one country that shares the coastal line. So, countries come together to protect the coastal line. It can be also rivers. River cross around many countries. So, like Nile River or Congo. Those rivers go through many, many countries. So, the many countries come together and come up with an agreement how to keep the water clean and how to use that water more in a manageable way so that drought would not happen, and we share the resources from upstream to downstream in a more equitable manner. So our projects, my favorite one is about the fisheries program with communities. So to protect the fisheries and also the ocean, in Tonga, actually, there is community that developed community protected areas so that they can protect the island together with the community and also government. But then, by protecting the coastal line, the fish population came back. And, in the past, they had to go further out to do fishing, but now they can do it, the fishing actually from from the island, and it actually saves energy so that you don't need to go further out. It also saves fishing population. The fish population have come back, and the coral reefs and everything else also came back. And then not only this community just started that, but then it has been replicated nationwide to 23 other protected areas, marine protected areas. And they are now conserving this whole, areas of very rich coral reefs and fisheries, and managing it by communities in a sustainable manner. So this is a one example from Tonga, but there is many countries around the world among our 127 countries that are working on similar initiatives.
Wow, yeah, that sounds really cool. I never thought about that in that way. That's cool that you're helping fish and not just like land animals. Okay, so now can you explain what land migration is?
Yeah, so land degradation means that by deforestation, the land gets degraded, or through agriculture, if you do intensive agriculture, the land get the nutrition goes away, the soil gets really poor, so the land degrade. So this is a really big issue, particularly in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, where water is scarce and there is also a lot of deforestation going on. So there is even a convention. Countries around the world came and said, we'll combat desertification and deforestation. So, so that is what the countries have agreed upon, and what we are trying to do on the ground is basically to bring in back more traditional way of agriculture, which is more um, friendly to environment, and also socially it is more based on their culture, their traditional knowledge, and manage the land in a more long-term and sustainable manner. So in case of good example is in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, we are making cocoa and like coffee in a shaded forest area, so that you don't need to cut all the forest to grow for coffee. And so it's shaded, and it's good for environment, and it's good for the nutrition on the ground. And so in that way, the production increases, so they can make more income, and then it's more sustainable. You can do these agriculture practice for a longer term and not worrying about the drought and other issues in a longer term. So this is like done in like Ethiopia and Kenya and many other countries that we work in Africa. And this brings in the food security issue. Food security is a very important issue in the world. Many countries are lacking food. So by introducing these agriculture practices, the communities have more stable food production and nutrition that they need.
Okay, so what are organic pollutants and why are they important?
So, organic pollutants is about harmful chemicals. So basically, there are many chemicals around the world, particularly like pesticides and fertilizers that has been really harmful to nature as well as human health. So, some of the good examples from the past is DDT. This was basically to eradicate pests, and you put it on all the agriculture products, and with the consequences of that, many bird species and also other insects and animals have died. It was good for malaria actually, because the malaria, the mosquitoes die with DDT, but it also had a very harmful effect to human health as well as to the population, like bald eagles and other birds who have really decreased numbers and the population declined. So, what we're doing is that there are, you know, about 20 plus chemicals that are introduced as organic pollutants, and we basically try to not use it, control it, and make sure that these are stored and not or burnt so that it's not used anymore. So, and bring in alternative means. There are many organic matters that we can use instead, and introducing those so that we can continue to have more production for agriculture and others, but stop using these harmful chemicals.
Oh yeah, and I bet when you spray that on crops, does it hurt the crops? Would it like hurt you if you ate it?
Yeah, so there could be harmful impact to yourself as well, but basically because there's no insects and other things, the product itself, like the wheats or the rice or others, grow better. But yeah, it has, you know, negative impact to there. There could be potential negative impact to the health. So that's why you find in the shops like organic products where they don't use these. Pesticides and other chemicals in the food. And those are considered much better for your health as well as for the environment. And yeah, being more promoted around the world.
Great. Okay, so what is mercury and how does your small grants program focus on this topic?
So mercury is something that you can find, for example, in the thermometer. You see that bubbles in it. It's useful for it, but it has really harmful impact to health. So you use it for thermometers and other medical equipment. We also use that for getting gold. So to purify and clean up gold, you use mercury, and in developing countries you use it in a really huge amount to do that, and it has really impact to the health of the miners. Some of them don't have any equipment, they hold mercury in their hands and have impact, like they can't move their hands anymore, they're shaking all the time. There is a huge impact. So what we're doing is that rather than stop using mercury and introduce alternative means, there are different technologies, like you can shake it and distinguish gold and sand, rather than using mercury. You can use water and stay in the water, and so there is a lot of different techniques. So we introduce those alternative technologies and means, as well as raise awareness among these people, particularly indigenous peoples are hard hit by these issues. Particularly they have lack of information and lack of alternatives, and so we support on introducing those, and shift to a different technology all along.
Wow, I didn't know any of that. That sounds really cool, especially about the gold. I never knew that. That's really interesting, and that project sounds really cool. Okay, so now can you give an example of a powerful project that falls under sustainable forest management?
Yep. So sustainable forest management. So maybe I can focus on a community forest management projects that we support in. Those are, basically projects that community come together and basically manage a forest land in a longer term. Like, they have a lease from the government for 100 years and come up with a sort of plan so that they can manage and use those forests in a longer term. So it's not only just protecting the forest, but it's more towards using it in a more smart way rather than deforestating and just use it right away. And maybe in a short term, you gain, you know, both money as well as, food and other things. But, once it's gone, it's gone. So the community have come together, own the land together, manage that and use it together. So these kind of technology, sort of approaches has been implemented in Nepal and India and other South Asian countries. It's also quite common in the Amazon area where indigenous peoples have come together. We manage also indigenous peoples community conserved areas. These are areas that the communities have, indigenous peoples have long term owned it and managed it, and it's sort of giving back their rights to use that land and protect it and protect their forests so that they can use the natural resources within it in a more sort of longer term with sort of assured rights. So what we do a lot is also to protect and also promote human rights of these indigenous peoples and community so that they can manage the resources among the communities and use it.
Yeah, deforestation is a really big problem, so it sounds like a really great project so where local people can protect their own forests. Okay, so now what does food security mean?
Good. So, food security, as I mentioned earlier, is that, because of climate change, because of deforestation, because of land degradation, many of the production of the land to grow agriculture products and others are declining in some places. So, to secure the food production and make sure that people have the necessary nutrition, we try to promote food security so that they can have food in a longer term by introducing more organic agriculture or more sustainable land use, meaning that, as I explained earlier, with shaded coffee growth, or introducing organic fertilizers to agriculture land so that it's not harming the environment and the water and the land. These technologies can, in a longer term, secure food and have a more stable food production in these places.
Great. Okay, so when you work to create a sustainable city, what does this mean?
Right. So sustainable cities is something that many cities are currently working on. Like, urbanization in the world is really rapidly happening. And, we're talking about more than half of the population will be living in, urban centers very quickly. So making cities more green, making cities more environmental friendly, and also thinking about social impact, people's life, not only economic gains from developing a city. We try to basically introduce more renewable energy to the city, or also think about urban parks and urban agriculture. Like, I think you've heard about making honey in the cities is possible. Like, in the rooftop people are doing honey production, and by having a park and the flowers in the parks, the honey can actually grow and, be more diverse. Biodiversity comes back in the city. So these kind of greener cities is what we are sort of promoting. And also more a circular economy. We call it basically, try to reduce waste but more recycle, so that you develop that system within the city so that you have less waste and recycle the waste and have a more sort of zero waste community with a circular economy within that city is what sustainable city is about.
That's amazing. Okay, so now let's switch gears a bit and let's dig deep and find ways that kids my age can make a difference. So, what do you mean when you say think globally, act locally?
Great. So, what it means is that in order to make a difference for the global environment, like, biodiversity is a big word, and, you save tigers or save snow leopard, many of the kids will think about, like, can I really do? But, by you taking a small step locally, makes a huge difference globally. So, like, I actually have two kids, similar age to you. One is 11 and another is 16. By just, bringing a water bottle instead of plastic bottled water, you're already making a huge difference to the world, right? I mean, if you consider about maybe if you're using every day a plastic water bottle, then it's like 365 bottles a year. But then if you have a reusable water bottle, and by just doing that, you're really saving a lot of not only plastic, but plastic comes from fossil fuels and it uses a lot of electricity to just make it. If you think about the footprint of that one water bottle, like plastic water bottle, and not using that makes a huge impact. So basically, what we're talking about is a one step at a time at the local level. If you make a difference, it has a huge impact to the world.
Definitely, you can always make a difference right from your home. You don't have to go to Africa to make a difference, and it's important to remember even though Africa's on the other side of the world, they still need our help, and you can always make a difference. Okay, so how do you engage kids and teenagers with the work that you do that is implemented by the UNDP? And can you start by telling us what UNDP stands for?
Great. So UNDP stands for United Nations Development Program. And it's a mouthful, I know. It's one of the UN organization that is working to support countries for more sustainable development, meaning that we are present in 170 countries, supporting countries to alleviate poverty. So basically, stop poverty and develop so that you have education, you have better environment, you have better government, you have better infrastructure. So support the country's development is what we do, and the countries actually have agreed on a thing called sustainable development goals in the UN. It was agreed in 2015 for as a goal for all the countries around the world, committed that we want to alleviate poverty, we want to have clean water, we want to have gender equality. So they all agreed upon it, and UNDP supports those work um, to strive to achieve that in all the countries that we work in. In terms of your question about youth and children, so our program is actually supporting 25,000 projects around the world, and it's really a lot of projects. But most of this project, about 47% of these projects involve youth. Youth bring in innovation, new ideas, and also more newer approaches, and also the enthusiasm to make a change. So they only not work on the ground projects like what we I talked about, like conservation projects or renewable projects or fisheries project. I mean, they are working on the ground as youth, but also they're working with governments and also change policies. So you do campaigns, you do advocacy, and make a difference to the leaders who make these decisions, and they all listen to the youth opinion. Of course, I mean, you're the next generation, and we really need to hear about what you want in the future and what your dreams are, so that we incorporate that into the decision making of these governments. um, and then yeah, so we also do training and capacity building, so raise awareness about environmental issues. We do cleanup campaigns or trainings or other things with kids as well. and we always bring, youth to UN events, like, many these assemblies and others. You see a delegate of youth, and we hear their voices, and we try to incorporate, the diverse views of the society in that way.
Definitely. It's up to my generation to make a difference because we can't wait till we're older. I mean, in 10 years, elephants are going to be gone if we don't take action. So, involving youth, my generation, is really great. Okay, so my final question is how can kids my age, both in the United States and countries all around the world, play a role in mending our planet? Can you tell us real things that we can do to start taking action now?
So actually, we have been working with schools and communities around the world with children, and I think what you can start doing is really, make a difference from your surrounding. So, I talked about the plastic bottle example earlier. You can stop using it and using reusable bottles, or you can also start working on community gardens, and start working on growing more organic food or organic plants and crops. I mean, there are many activities like that, and that all really, leads to a big change of waves. And what people start to do makes a huge difference and make a huge wave to make a difference. And I think, youth with a new digital technology and also innovative thinking can make a huge difference to that. And also linking up, I think, people in US and also like in Africa and Asia, we also try to link up. We call it sort of south-south cooperation, like, one countries from another, like Pacific to Caribbean, the children talk to each other and share what they're doing, in terms of plastic cleanup, or conservation of species, or all these activities. They can do these exchanges and sort of replicate in your own places. And I think these are really powerful ways to exchange views and approaches and make a huge difference on the ground.
Definitely. Well, that was my last question. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And before we sign off, where can kids and teens go to learn more about the UNDP and all the amazing projects you're involved in?
Great. So I guess you can come and link up with us in the website at www.sgp.undp.org, or we're also active in Twitters and also Facebooks and others. So yeah, but do contact me, and happy to engage and see what we can do together.
Perfect. We'll have all those links below. And thank you so much for being here today. It was great talking to you and learning about all the amazing work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's been great talking with you.
Let's go!
Advocacy has no age limit.